Welcome into another edition of Ringside Review. I am Athan Hristodulu, and as always, joined alongside by Matt Colpitts. We are diving into last night's Monday Night Raw, talking all the things wrestling and gearing up and getting ready for what is an action-packed weekend of wrestling, because not only do we have Saturday night's main event, but we also have Evolution. Matt, thank you, as always, for joining me. Monday Night Raw, go-home show before a big weekend. I would say felt run-of-the-mill. It felt like a go-home show, and that seems to be kind of the formula for WWE as of late, where just the show before a big weekend, big events, things like that, doesn't really add a ton. It was basically like the Seth Rollins and crew show for whatever they're calling themselves right now, but that's basically what it felt like, where they came out and started the show, and they all had a match, if I'm remembering correctly, and all won their matches. So it was basically the Seth Rollins and company show, plus a couple other things being fleshed out in the meantime. Overall thoughts on the night before we dive in?
Well, before we get to that, I know you mentioned that it's an action-packed weekend of wrestling, and hey, AEW all in as well. No? Crickets?
Oh.
Crickets? Oh, okay, my bad. But yeah, I mean, I thought it was a pretty good show, but just, nothing spectacular. Like you said, it was just the Saturday night main event and Evolution promotional show,
Yeah.
And they were actually right here in New England, which is pretty cool. I know when Jay was doing his entrance, I saw a couple Patriots jerseys, so it was cool that they were right in our backyard. But yeah, it was a lot of, LA Knight coming out at the end, promoting the match. Goldberg on the show just to promote his final match Saturday. The triple threat at Evolution, promoting it. Rhea and Iyo got a package, promoting their match. So that's really all it was. Good show, nothing spectacular.
Yeah, just a run-of-the-mill show, which is fine. I feel like when you're getting into a big weekend like this, you don't need a lot. You basically just need to remind everyone, hey, this is going on. Tune in so we can find out what happens. Something that happened at the beginning of the show, though, I wanted to discuss with you, because it left me kind of saying like, okay, this all makes a lot more sense now, seeing this, because in the onset of seeing Braun Breaker and Bronson Reed being paired in with Seth Rollins and Paul Heyman's new faction here, I was a little bit intrigued by the idea, especially like Braun Breaker's end, because I was all on the stance of Braun Breaker needs to be doing his own thing. He needs to be gunning for the world championship. He needs to be the guy now. Well, Braun Breaker and Bronson Reed got the opportunity to essentially do the talking for them, opening up the show, and I walked away from it going, still a work in progress. This is why these two guys, on the mic more than anything else, like their in-ring work for both of them, I like. For Braun Breaker, obviously the athletic machine that he is, just absolutely whipping people whenever he needs to. And Bronson Reed is the big man that will absolutely swallow up whoever he needs to in any match. Like their in-ring work is what it is, and they're well established there. But you see the way Braun Breaker kind of delivered whatever that was towards Sami Zayn, and basically threatening that he was going to take him out, and he did. But the delivery was awkward. It felt like he didn't really know where he was trying to go with what he was saying, and it just didn't sound like something a guy like Braun Breaker would say in real life. And whether that's the scripting not matching the person, or maybe just him flubbing up some words, whatever it was, I wasn't a fan of. And then on Bronson Reed's end, we have him essentially just kind of like punking Seth Rollins in a way, and going over the fact that he basically annihilated Seth Rollins with 6 tsunamis, and he took him out and all this and that, and basically it earned the respect of Seth Rollins. But that dynamic has always been weird to me as it is, just seeing them two in a group together. But to see Bronson Reed go out and just basically explain how he dished out the punishment on Seth Rollins also felt and made the situation even more weird for me. I just want to get your thoughts on this, if this is something that I was just overanalyzing, or if maybe anyone else is feeling the same as I am.
No, 100%, man. And I feel like you always, as a wrestling fan, you kind of get that gut feeling, or you can tell when something's starting to click, or when someone's getting over, whatever it is. Like, for example, Karrion Kross recently has really been starting to get over, and you can see it with the crowd. Even when he attacked Sami Zayn and was walking off, you would think that the people cheer for Sami, they were cheering, "We want Kross."
Yes.
So you can kind of tell when, again, something is clicking in the wrestling world. This faction hasn't been doing it. And it's not that Seth Rollins isn't over. It's not that Braun Breaker isn't over. You could even argue that, in a way, Bronson Reed is over as well. But I think it's like something's off. And way back when we were predicting like who's going to get added to this group, back when it was Breaker and Rollins at the time, I remember I pitched like Logan Paul, Austin Theory, Carmelo Hayes, that kind of like young, what Randy Orton was in Evolution kind of role. I personally am just having a problem with Bronson Reed fitting into this group when Braun Breaker is already there. Braun Breaker very much feels like the muscle. This whole episode last night, he was the one that went rogue. He was the one that destroyed Sami Zayn. He was the one that just kind of seems like the wild, dog on the loose, literally. And Bronson Reed is just kind of there. In fact, even when he was making his entrance, this takes me back to when Vince was still in charge. Mr. McMahon was always kind of big on like the size of a wrestler, and that's why he was so against Daniel Bryan and the smaller guys. Bronson Reed came out, and he was shorter than Paul Heyman. Like, I'm just pointing that out. It's hard for me to believe in Bronson Reed as the muscle in this group, and it just feels out of place. And where they're just getting so oversaturated, something is not clicking. And I feel like, maybe for me, I'm highlighting Reed as maybe the issue. Maybe it's not that. Maybe they just need a fourth member, and then the group will finally set sailing. But I'm glad that you had some criticism for the group. I agree with your points that the promos were rough. It's good that Heyman is there to save them. Mm-hmm. But that's kind of my observation, is that something is wrong, and for me, I feel like I'm pointing the finger at Reed most of the time.
Yeah, there is something about the group, and I don't want to sound like I don't enjoy it, because I do enjoy seeing this, because this is, again, we're in a situation where this kind of came out of left field and it wasn't expected, and I've been interested in how it's going to unfold. And there is a bit of, and this can kind of spill into the next thing that I wanted to discuss with you today too, is it feels like they're in a bit of a holding pattern right now, because Seth Rollins has the briefcase and he clearly has a goal in mind. They keep alluding to like this future plan, like Braun Breaker saying how Paul Heyman and Seth have him set up to be the face of the WWE for the next 20 years. But like in reality, we got to get through Seth Rollins cashing in and probably having a championship for X amount of time before Braun Breaker even gets to that, which I am assuming is going to be another layer to this whole group onion that I wish they would get a name for now. They don't have a name yet. Okay, I was gonna say I haven't missed that, right? But they don't have a name, or I would love for them to get something. And I saw somebody pitch the idea of the Empire. I kind of like that, but there's clearly something that's going to happen down the road, because Braun Breaker thinks he is the future of this, but like the reality is Seth is the present. He has the briefcase. He's going to get a world championship around his waist for some point in time. But this kind of leads me to the next thing that I wanted to talk to you about, and that is Seth obviously has this match with LA Knight, and it's something that has kind of turned into like an afterthought for what Seth Rollins is doing right now, because he has this group. They're spreading themselves extremely thin, but they're able to manage it because of just the amount of muscle they're working with right now and the pull that Paul Heyman brings. But he has this match with LA Knight, and it's kind of an afterthought. And I think that there's a reason for that, because I think we are getting close to what is going to be the next layer of this Seth Rollins group, because I feel like this kind of happens with these larger groups where you have like that defined leader, where it feels like, what is the direction? What's going on here? They're in like 100 different places, because I think Seth Rollins by design is looking past LA Knight, because I think this weekend we're going to see that cash in for Seth Rollins. And I will lay out a better explanation when we go through the predictions and everything. But something tells me that there is an opportunity post Gunther and Goldberg match where Seth Rollins will get to do that cash in, where it opens up the opportunity. And this will kind of spoil my prediction, I guess, for one of the matches, but I want to explain this here, where Seth Rollins can lose to an LA Knight in Saturday night's main event and it be fine, whether it's through some wonky victory or like maybe Bronson Reed and Braun Breaker finally come in for interference and cost Seth the match as opposed to helping him win, because they've been getting over on everyone. Maybe this is where that first little ripple happens and Seth loses, but then ultimately wins the championship later in the night. So like, for me, this LA Knight match is kind of being used in a sense of, this is going on, this is what Seth is doing, but there's a bigger picture beyond it, if that makes sense. Because I've seen a lot of people complaining about this LA Knight and Seth Rollins build really not having a lot, and I think that that's kind of the big reason why, because it's literally the holding moment before what is actually going to come for Seth.
Yeah, I agree, and it reminds me of the actual whichever WrestleMania number it is eludes me, but when Seth lost to Randy Orton at WrestleMania,
31.
Yes, that one. And then later in the night goes on to obviously have the heist of the century, winning the world title against Lesnar and Reigns. So it's like that almost gives me the same vibe of maybe what we're going to see on Saturday. Maybe it is, elevate LA Knight with a big win. Then he can go on, do his own thing while Seth goes on to inevitably win the title, especially if it's, we're going to get to the prediction shortly, but if it's Goldberg or Gunther, seems like Seth could cash in on either. So, yeah, I do agree with your kind of theory in place. And it does feel very much like they've just been pitting all these baby faces against this Empire group. That's what we're going to run with from now on.
We're calling it the Empire.
We're established right here, Ringside Review. But yeah, it just seems like, Jay, Sammy, Punk, list goes on and on. Now you got LA Knight going as well. It just seems like these are all kind of afterthoughts to inevitably get to Seth Rollins' championship win. And then Seth is going to probably go one-on-one programs with each guy, seemingly being the main one with CM Punk. But yeah, I could see that kind of being how it goes. It feels very much like this is just a good way to elevate Knight and then move him elsewhere. I don't know where it would go for Knight if he is to lose on Saturday and Rollins just continues to dominate. So I know that's a good segue into the predictions. But I feel like that's
at this point, we might as well just dive into the predictions. It's the first match that we have on the docket here. And I guess since I kind of started the whole basic spoiling our predictions for this year, I'll start with this one. So LA Knight and Seth Rollins being the first of the 4 predictions we're going to make for this weekend, 2 for Saturday night's main event, 2 for Evolution the following evening. My gut feeling is LA Knight wins this, and I kind of already teased it, and it's going to be in a fashion where Bronson Reed and or Braun Breaker, however they decide that, is going to accidentally maybe cost Seth Rollins the match and it not be a big deal in the long run. The reason being is because I'm expecting that cash in for Seth Rollins. And to your point that you just made about LA Knight, I don't see how he comes out of Saturday night's main event in a good spot if he loses this match straight up or even through interference. I feel like LA Knight kind of needs a win to recapture some momentum that he's lost a little bit. And it feels like he's been building momentum with the fans again as of late. So if you have him go into this and just lose, again, whether it's clean, whether it's a screwy finish, whatever it may be, LA Knight doesn't come out on the other end in a better spot. He needs a good win here, and this could put him in a better spot on the SmackDown side of things. And the fact that this is an interpromotional match for 2 guys that are on 2 completely different brands, it works. So LA Knight gets a win, puts him in a better spot, whether that's for, one of the singles titles or what is it? What's over on SmackDown right now? It's the United States Championship, right? So yes, the U.S. Championship. If that puts him into a better spot to get back into that picture, or maybe just something down the line where he has a match with John Cena, because there's a piece of me that would love to see the mic work between LA Knight and John Cena. He needs to win this match. So I'm going to go LA Knight on this one here. I just feel like it makes the most sense. The way, whichever way I try to look at it. LA Knight losing just does not do anything for him coming out of it.
100%. And the fact that they are, again, a SmackDown superstar versus a Raw superstar, although nowadays it seems like that also doesn't even matter anymore.
Yeah, at this point.
It does just make the most sense for LA Knight to get this win. If he is to lose, I just never see him going to be able to take that next step. I don't envision him being a Royal Rumble winner. He's never going to win the Money in the Bank at this rate. It's been 3 years in a row where he comes as the runner-up and then just gets tossed. So this very much feels like the defining feud for LA Knight, where he has everything to lose against a top star like Rollins. Rollins has the Money in the Bank. That is the ultimate insurance to lose 100% of your matches and then still go become the champion. So it just seems like it's, right there. It makes sense. Maybe they're going to, do a screw job and LA Knight ends up losing. But it just feels like this is starting to become the point where, it might be irreparable if you just continue to kind of screw over LA Knight and not give the fans what they want. Because it starts to become like Boy Who Cried Wolf, It's all right, why are we going to believe in this guy when he's just going to lose for the 80th time?
Yes.
I feel like there's so many, Finn Balor, Shinsuke Nakamura. You just give up on guys because you just know there's no hope. So I'm hoping that LA Knight doesn't fall into that, and I'm going to say LA Knight is the winner.
Yeah. All right, so we both are on LA Knight for this one here. The next one we're going to discuss, though, and I'm curious to hear what you have to say. I'll let you go first on this one. Big championship matchup for the night. Goldberg, Gunther for the World Heavyweight Championship. We saw a little bit of a confrontation between the two for the first time in what feels like almost a month since the match first got announced. Goldberg has been MIA, showed up in a car, came out, slapped the mic out of Gunther's hand, shoved him, and then ultimately went for a spear. Goldberg rolling out of the ring, that whole thing. We have passed around ideas about this for a couple of weeks already as it is, and I'm starting to feel, and initially my thought was maybe Goldberg just wins. That would be the ultimate shock value thing. But This isn't 2015 Goldberg versus Lesnar where you can have Goldberg go over and it still be believable. We've seen Goldberg kind of fall apart in the ring in the last decade in certain spots, and it's been a while since he's even been in the ring since all of that was going on. I don't think you can have Gunther lose here, but you can have Gunther win in a nice hard-fought matchup where it's just two heavy hitters for, 5 to 10 minutes, where Goldberg is believable enough that he can wear out Gunther in a position to make him vulnerable for a Seth Rollins cash-in like I've been teasing here. So I do think Gunther goes over as champion still, and that's ultimately where Seth Rollins comes in to pick the bones of what is a just hard-fought, finisher fest of a match where these two are just absolutely throwing bombs at each other, and Gunther ultimately comes away with the win.
Yeah, I agree with that scenario, and honestly, that is what my gut is saying. So I also will pick Gunther. But I guess to be devil's advocate, if it is to be Goldberg, you could also kind of have that exact same scenario we just mapped out for Gunther with Goldberg. Goldberg can win. He gets his final hurrah. It's his last match. The announcers are already starting to build up like, oh, man, like, what's Goldberg going to do? Like, this was his last match, but now he's the champion. Like, they were teasing, like, oh, we'll see what happens if that is to happen. And then Rollins comes out, cashes in on Goldberg. They beat him up. It's interchangeable. So my gut and pick is going to be Gunther, but I think inevitably the bigger picture here is a Rollins finally winning the title with the Money in the Bank. If that doesn't happen, I would be shocked.
So now that I'm thinking about this, I think I might call an audible on what I just decided on for a winner. And I think I'm going to say it's Seth Rollins.
Ooh.
Something tells me, like, how about we do this? Nobody has to lose, but Seth Rollins can win. Obviously, one of those two is going to eat the pin, whether it's Goldberg, and it makes me kind of feel like it's not going to be Goldberg because it's his last match. What if the scenario is Goldberg and Gunther just beating each other to a pulp, and Seth coming in off a lot? And, like, this is like a callback city, basically, at this point now, and I feel like this is all coming to me as I'm sitting here talking it out loud. Seth loses earlier in the night. You basically have LA Knight Seth. You get the Randy Orton and Drew McIntyre match in between this match to finish off the night. These two are just beating each other to a pulp, assuming that's how this match has to go. Seth cashing in the middle of the match, and maybe he pins a Gunther to protect Goldberg's legacy. They're not going to make him lose in his final match like that, I guess, per se. And then Gunther can go down, hard-fought, eating stomps, getting beat down. It's a triple threat at that point. Rollins and his boys all... I think Seth Rollins wins. So I think I'm changing my prediction. Seth Rollins for the cash-in. Seth Rollins wins the match. So I'm going to take Seth Rollins for a loss in his first match, but then a win in a match he's not in.
I like it.
That'll be my prediction there. Any changes on yours? Or you're going to stick with just Gunther winning?
I'm going to stick with Rollins is leaving with the title, but I do think it's going to be one of the two getting a win. I'm going to stick with Gunther.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. Now, flipping into Evolution, because, of course, there is another show literally the following night after. Some big matches on this card as well. The one that we're going to get into, though, of course, first, the Women's World Championship matchup between Rhea Ripley and Iyo Sky. The storyline, of course, Rhea Ripley has never been able to get one over on Iyo Sky. I think she's like 0-6 against her, whatever the actual record is. But this is where I think we finally see that potential victory. I'll let you go first, but it feels like that's what they've been teasing. And for me, just the story of Rhea not being able to get one over on her, continuing on from this point, doesn't make a ton of sense. But you tell me what you think.
Yeah. I'm going to say the word unfortunately because I'm a big Iyo Sky fan. But I do think unfortunately it's pretty much writing on the wall that Rhea Ripley is walking away with the title. I remember I kind of vented about this one last time we had talked about it. I just feel like the story could have been so much better if it was an Asuka or someone. But yet again, they kind of just handed it on a silver platter to Rhea. So I have my gripes with this match, but I think short and sweet is going to be Rhea Ripley overcoming that so that kind of doesn't hang over her head. She's the top star in WWE, one of the top stars. It would be rough if you have that one kind of person that always has your number. So it's time for her to conquer Iyo Sky. They've done nothing with Iyo Sky as champion. So I don't see where it goes from here other than Rhea Ripley kind of getting the belt back. It feels like what TKO wants. So Rhea Ripley's my pick.
Oh man, see that's where I was gonna go with that too. Is this what this is more about? It feels like the company wants to put the belt on the most one of the most popular wrestlers in the business. Never mind women's wrestlers, but just wrestlers in general in the business. there is a piece of me that feels like because they teased like Iyo Sky and Asuka a little bit ago, that there is a chance that maybe Iyo shocks everyone. And I think there is value in that. I think there is value in the idea that Iyo Sky continues to get one over on Rhea Ripley and she can't get the job done. And that just continues into the story of Rhea Ripley trying to recapture the gold. And I think there is still plenty of story to be told now with Kairi Sane back and Asuka being back as well. And it feels like maybe, I feel like they're the mystery fourth team in the women's tag team match. I don't think that's announced yet for who the fourth team is, unless I missed that. I don't think we have that fourth team yet. I could be wrong. That feels like that's what the fourth team is going to be. But I feel like there is plenty of story to still be told with those two back in the fold now on Monday nights, and obviously Iyo Sky being the women's champion of Monday night. Like, there's a lot to be had there, and I almost feel like you're kind of missing a mark by not allowing that to play itself out, and you could put Rhea Ripley in a situation where maybe she's winning the championship at SummerSlam or just further down the line. But like you said, it feels like TKO wants the belt on Rhea Ripley. It feels like we can't get away from Rhea Ripley in the title picture in any shape or form, whether she has the belt or not. She is involved, and ultimately I'm thinking she comes away with the championship myself. So we are in the same boat on that one. But then the last match we have to discuss, certainly not least, but one that I think got a shot in the arm this past Monday night. We didn't discuss this prior, but one that I do think got a big boost. We have Lyra Valkyria, Becky Lynch, and Bayley all gunning for that Intercontinental Championship. Bayley being put into this has given this whole entire rivalry and also the Women's Intercontinental Championship a big boost in life and just value overall, because obviously Becky Lynch and of course Bayley have a ton of history and just legacy already built themselves as Lyra works her way into that fold as well. But you hear what Bayley said to Lyra Valkyria last night about raising Becky Lynch's hand at the end of their match. The whole crowd, you could hear a pin drop when she hit the words. This is one that I, again, wasn't super excited about until this go-home show, and I think that confrontation between the three of them really sold me on it. As for who's going to actually win, I'll jump the gun on this one here. I think it's going to be Becky Lynch. I think she is going to continue this reign of terror, and her being a heel as champion has been something that the WWE has worked towards now for the better part of, what is it now, 2-3 months? So whenever Becky officially turned heel the Monday night after WrestleMania, it's too soon for her to drop the title in my eyes. I think she's going to keep this run going until about SummerSlam, and that's where they end up taking the belt off of her, whether it's through Lyra, through Bayley, or maybe somebody else that gets added into the fold. I just feel like it's a little bit too early to take the belt off of Becky Lynch after just putting it on her, and I feel like an event like SummerSlam is where they really want to have a big title change like that. I understand the meaning and the importance of Evolution this weekend and for the women's division as a whole, but I do still also understand the way WWE recognizes their big four pay-per-view, or PLEs, excuse me, and it feels like a SummerSlam change of somebody going over Becky Lynch makes a little bit more sense to me in my eyes.
Yeah, I agree, and I'm going to follow up. I also am going to pick Becky Lynch here because I feel like, first off, you had the go-home show, and Lyra stands tall. Typically, that means you're not winning the match.
Yes.
Plus, with her being the newbie, she has a long career ahead to win all the titles, all the Intercontinental Championships she wants. So she'll be fine. It's already elevating her so much being in the feud with Becky Lynch. And now to also have Bayley involved, two of the four horsewomen, she's going to be perfectly fine just being in the match. So I don't see her winning. Bayley is actually the pick that I would like to see win. I do think Bayley, always kind of gets the short end of the stick from WWE when it comes to the four horsewomen. I mean, obviously with Sasha Banks going on to become Mercedes Moné elsewhere, you still have Charlotte and Becky that WWE adores. But Bayley is never on the posters. Bayley just always, again, gets the short end of the stick. So I'm rooting for her. I would love to see it. But like I said earlier in the podcast, where you get that gut feeling as a wrestling fan, I don't have it for a Bayley win at Evolution, and I'm hoping that maybe it does build up to SummerSlam or wherever it may be. But this feels very much like it's a triple threat, so you can just have a great showcase of these three talents, but the champ is going to walk away. I agree. Becky Lynch, Reign of Terror is to continue.
All right, so we're in like lockstep for basically everything here. It's just that Gunther Goldberg match, I feel like, has so many possibilities of how it could play out. Like, I wouldn't be shocked if Goldberg wins. I wouldn't be shocked if Gunther wins. I also wouldn't be shocked if Seth Rollins is cashing in the middle of that match and winning it himself. There's a lot to look forward to this weekend. 2 big events: Saturday night's main event, and of course, WWE Evolution. They even got SmackDown still coming up in a few days, so plenty to look forward to. But that'll do it for today's edition of Ringside Review. Matt, as always, thanks for joining. If you made it to the end, we greatly appreciate it. We'll see you all next time.